It's Craig.
Craig.
The infamous Craig.
The infamous Craig. You meet him at last. Welcome back to another Rules, Jewels, and D&D Schools. Joined today by a friend of the show, Bryan, and the most pro iTunes reviewer of all time. How's it going?
I forgot about that.
That's quite the introduction.
I read that review and I was like,
oh yeah, and he plays D&D with us sometimes.
yeah, and he plays D&D with us too. But his iTunes reviews, 10 out of 10. Check them out.
One of these is more important than the other. Obviously.
And it's the iTunes reviews.
It's the iTunes reviews. Don't forget to leave a review, people.
Yeah.
Anyways, it is
Support
very
content
important.
Creators.
Yeah. Anywho, how's it going, boys?
It's going okay.
It's a good one.
It's a going. Well, today we're going to talk to Bryan about being a new player. Not a new player anymore, but the newest of all of us, and his experience of playing with us, playing within a more experienced group versus everyone being brand new. Actually, none of you guys have experienced that, right? The full 100% new group.
Nope. Is that even possible? Does such a thing exist at this point in D&D history? I feel like it's always someone bringing someone else in.
Yeah, you gotta.
I don't know anyone who's like, "Hey, have you ever played D&D?" No, me neither. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Right.
I know of one. His name was Gary.
Gary, the legendary all new player.
Gary Gygax.
Yeah, drugs
All right.
don't work that way.
Oh shit. Well, boys, who wants to start?
Well, any of us can start. What's your burning question?
What? Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. What is the burning question?
This is going great.
I know. That's why I asked you if you prepared.
I'll start off with this because what did you do any preparation to come play?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps it's best if we set the groundwork for how this happened, right?
Sure.
I don't know that part.
Tell me a story.
I'll spin you a tale.
Spin us a tale.
Come,
the
children.
part I don't know about.
Sit. Well, like a lot of people, I think the pandemic hit and their social avenues completely pissadeered, right?
Yeah.
And I think, Isaac, you invited me to come play before you started. And I said, I ain't about that shit. And you're like, all right.
You're like, I ain't no fucking nerd.
Yeah, dude. Don't fucking talk to me. I can't remember. One thing led to another, though. And it was like, yeah, sure. Like, hey, do you still looking for someone to play? And you're like, yeah, you can hop in. We work together on all that kind of thing. But as far as the impetus goes, I think it was just like, oh, it looks like it's a lot of fun. And it would be something I'm interested in. I had some time free up because I quit. I think I had my son, and then a couple months, he got old enough where it's just like, hey, I have time to do shit now, and what do I jump into? My friends are all playing, let's do this. But yeah, when we were initially talking about it, and you were kind of introducing a new person to it, talking about what you can do, yeah, did I prepare? Absolutely. Way too much reading, so much reading about it, because it's so. I mean, that's the beauty of the game. That it's so open-ended, and you can be whatever you want to be. And I think you guys did a good idea of not dictating to me how I should jump in, but at the same time, it was there's nothing really for me to grab onto. And so I just remember reading about all the different classes, what they could do. When I found something I thought was the most interesting, I was like, oh my gosh! And also, here's the other thing. I think I was jumping in. And the campaign was at a point where all the players were level 8 or 9?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just all right,
levels.
Yeah, let's roll up a level 3. So you got to figure out your subclass and maybe a couple spells, and that's it. And I was just I think I picked Warlock, and I was looking into whatever the levels are at that point. You're getting your level 4th or 5th spell, at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's the little amount you did ask was incredibly impressive, because everybody I've ever brought into D&D is all right, so we're gonna sit down and we're gonna make a character.
I mean, I guess
basically
you should.
killed the first character.
See, for me, mine was completely different. My brother was like, "You want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." I watched a couple episodes of Critical Role, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll play." And he goes, "Okay, I'll make you a character. You just show up." So I showed up. He hands me the character, and he was like, he asked me like, "What do you want to be?" And I was like, "I want to be a rogue." That sounds cool. Make my character a young rogue. Okay, here's your thing. I get there and he goes, "Okay," and he's like talking to the group and he goes, "All right." And you see this kid walking up, and I walk up and he goes, "Kid has been." You see him scoping this place out, and I'm going, "Okay, why?" And I'm asking like, "Why is my character doing that?" I don't know. I'm like, I was seriously just like, what do I roll? I don't know what I'm doing. What can I do? I'm reading the character sheet as we're playing. I'm like,
That is like some
First time.
jumping in the deep end, like level of unpreparedness. That's unreal.
So
I mean, you should ask Isaac though, because I feel like I texted or messaged him like, I don't know. I felt not. Maybe pestering is a good word.
I loved it. I
Yeah.
was just happy to have someone that was going to be into it. When I joined your guys is with Michael,
Yeah.
that was like 8th or 9th level, and I also chose Warlock.
Yep. I know. You're crazy.
And I had watched, I had watched hundreds of hours of Critical Role at that point, so I felt pretty prepared for like rules wise to know what was the basics of what was going on.
Yeah, like how rolling dice and everything.
Yeah, and I was asking Michael over and over, similar to how you were asking me. I was like, what do I know? What do I tell these people when they say, "What are you doing here?" That kind of thing. And he was like, "You've just been there."
Yeah,
You got captured. You've been there. And I was like, okay. And then
How much
Bryan,
do you need?
you asked me those same questions. I like gave you like a whole thing. We went back and forth multiple times over why you were there, how long you'd been there, how long you thought you'd been there. It was
It's interesting. Yeah,
it's a bit different.
because like it's you bring that point up and it reminds me like it's interesting playing. So I've been in 2 campaigns. I've been in the one that I joined partially through, and then this one that we started here.
Mhm.
And thinking back to that and asking like, wait, where am I at again? How is this? Like diving into something as large as D&D is, it was interesting that it was, I don't want to say as difficult, but there was a challenge to like consume the rules and create the character, and then there was a challenge of like jumping into a story halfway through.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know which one was more so, because like, I mean, it'd just be like cracking open a book halfway through and just like, all right, I'm going to insert myself in here without having the background or context.
I don't know how much you felt it, but whenever I joined theirs, I felt it a lot. They had a lot. They had been playing for years, right?
Yeah.
Before I showed up.
Yeah, we had been playing for
And I show
multiple
up
years.
in the middle of it, and like not knowing anything about the world building that had been done. Like I was in this place, and I got captured, bag over my head. They took me somewhere, and I wake up, and I'm in this cave, and they find me. So like the only backstory for me was what I had written. I was like, I was with another band of adventurers, and we got separated. I'm looking for them, and so for me jumping into their thing, and they kept on like popping out these names and places, and I'm like, do I know what that is? And he's like, no, you don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Like, okay, good.
That was that entire campaign. The one I started. I started at level 11. And I wasn't a caster, but still, level 11 is a lot.
That is a lot.
They were like, we need you to roll 7d6 for sneak attack. I roll it, and I'm like, dang, dude, I gotta count all that. Dang,
It's a lot of addition.
I'm sitting there, I'm like counting it up, and I'm going, sorry guys, and that's throwing me off my counting because I'm apologizing for taking too long, and I'm like, sorry guys,
I gotta start over again. Hold on. So yeah, I don't know if that was something that you dealt with as far as like them mentioning names and places and you being like, I don't know what that is, but that was certainly the sort of the hump for me to get over, was just like catching up story wise and being
Yeah, the
like,
best
oh,
way
I
is to
know
start-
who that is you're talking about now.
The best way
I
to
met
start is
them.
at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I feel lucky that I joined the group that I did because A, we're still playing. B, like when it comes to like people being gone, I'm the biggest problem. You know, like we're consistent, and like
Yeah.
me having a brand new infant is the biggest problem. But even then, we still manage to play every other week. And
Yeah.
C, like, because here was another element. Like, you guys were very welcoming and willing to inform me and bring me in and help, you know?
Yeah.
And the next thing that I was going to mention is that I remember that first like game and feeling kind of nervous and also feeling very reticent to like jump in
Yeah.
with some stuff because I was like, I don't know how this is supposed to go or how much I should talk, especially being the new person, or like how much
Yeah.
to be a part of it. Not because of anything anybody did. In fact, you guys
Yeah.
were all very like, very much so like, yeah, absolutely, like please come play, be
Yeah.
a part
Yeah.
of this. But just kind of like that was one thing, because I remember you asked me about being on this to talk about like what it was like to be a new guy with such veterans. Like that was one
Yeah.
thing. It was like there is a preconceived understanding of how this game is played, and I am new to it. And so I
Yeah.
felt like I didn't want to throw that off, which is funny now knowing what I know about D&D, which is like
Yeah.
there's no right way to do this aside
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
you know, being-
Aside from just being like, and this is I'm going to talk now, everone.
yeah, exactly.
And it's
Don't be
okay
a
if the
wild-
entire session is just me talking.
yeah, don't be a wild jerk is like the only way that you can really do. I mean, that's a very
Listen,
thinned out way to sum it up.
rules of thumb: don't attack your teammates. Don't steal from your teammates. Don't with your teammates. It'll be solid. It'll be good.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't that guy at the beginning of that other campaign, Joe? One of the guys was stealing. No, it was a different campaign. One of our guys made a character, and his whole thing was just stealing from our bags.
Yeah, constantly.
What a dick.
I had to
The opposite's true too. If you're such a goody two shoes and your team does something bad, and you
yes.
constantly keep coming after to kill them because they mentioned possibly becoming a vampire.
Yeah,
You're
we've had
only
that
battling-
too.
And they were like, "I'm gonna kill you. I don't care what you say. I'm killing you. I'm killing you. I'm killing you. Oh, you knocked me out. I got back up. Tried to kill you again."
Yeah, we had that happen.
Ugh.
Yep, that was Michael Butler.
Of course it was.
We were like in a desperate strait, and we got attacked by a vampire, and the vampire was like, I can turn you into a vampire and you'll gain powers. And I was like, we need these powers. We're in bad times. We got to take this guy out. And Butler was like, and now I shall kill you. And that was the end of it.
That could be.
That was the end of Butler's character.
That could be interesting. I don't know. But
It wasn't
if you
played
kill him back,
interesting.
then
It wasn't
okay.
played interesting.
There
No.
was no talking or anything, and it was just like, okay.
We were trying very hard not to kill Butler, and he was trying very hard to kill us.
Dang.
So, how did you feel about? Because I know, like I mentioned, you and I had gone back and forth as far as your contribution, your character's contribution to the story. How did you feel about all that? Because it sounds like Joe had none, I had a little, and you had a lot.
As far as like my personal contribution or like the character's role in the story?
Both. Just how did you feel about like? Because whenever you and I had gone back and forth, I really tried to give the party a reason to want to take you along.
Yeah.
So that it isn't, because a lot of times when a new player is brought in, like what happened with Joe, and people are like, "Why are you looking?" And they're like, "I don't know." And in any kind of normal thing, it'd be like, "Okay, bye."
Yeah, why do I want you in this group? You need to get out. Like, what are you doing? You're not adding anything. You get out of here.
That's like
Right.
when David's character joined us.
I tried to give
This
David
guy's
some
following
stuff,
you
but
guys,
he was
and you
like,
guys
"I'm
noticed
just,"
it.
yeah. I asked
There-
him, I was like, "How do you want to do this, David?" And he was like, he told me like his backstory. It's like, "But how do you want to like approach the party?" And I was like, "Do you want to just like hide from him and follow him out?" And he's like, "Yeah." Oh, okay, that's what we're gonna do then.
How weird that is.
But yeah,
I've been
so
stalking you for 5 days. I want to be in your party. It's like, what?
Yeah. Come on.
Come on in. Yeah, we just take anybody who follows us for a while. They're just stragglers. We loop them in. They're like stray
Yeah.
cats.
Absolutely. Please.
So yeah, that's what I was wanting to know is, did it feel like you had, or did it feel like your character had both a reason to join this group and then you guys, did you think that there was a reason that you should bring this character with you?
More
Like,
so
what was
than
the
any other
transition?
He
there?
probably
Was it
had
how-
the biggest one was that he was in there, and we were
Yeah.
thinking this guy could give us information on what we're looking for. We just need to help him out.
It was the most compelling new character add I've ever had to any campaign I've ever played.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, I thought it was same for me. I mean, again, coming to it as a fresh, new person to the game, I had no idea. But like, I felt like it's funny because I come from a bit of an acting background. I mean, not anything serious or anything, but that's what I studied in my undergrad. So like the idea of like motivation and purpose and like why am I there, like Joe mentioned earlier, is like super important when we play.
Yeah.
And I felt like that existed. For those that don't know, like essentially the party was kind of working their way through, was it the Underdark at the time?
I don't remember.
It was
Yeah.
it was a dwarven dig site where they had found ghosts. And there was a big seal that like a big sealed wall basically with a magical tome thing up.
And we wanted to get to the Underdark, correct?
It was on your list of things to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yes, I do remember this. And you were locked inside and then freedom.
We fought that ogre.
Yeah. Okay. I remember that for sure.
Yeah.
So I had a kickstart.
Yeah.
That was your first fight, and you got the first kill, right? Didn't you light him on fire?
I can't
remember. I think you
Yeah,
did.
I remember it being like I remember the first roll I missed, and I was like, oh, I freaking missed.
You rolled like crap for like the first 5 to 6 sessions. Like, you missed
It was
like a
rough.
lot.
Isaac knows a lot about that.
I did have pretty bad luck, but there was an epic moment or two, and I think you're right. My character was kind of like hyperbolic time chambered in there with this ogre because of some backstory stuff, and so like I think there was plenty of like motivation to stick with this crew of people because it was like I was locked in a room with an ogre, and for my character it felt like seconds, but to this party they come in and are like, oh, did you know that it's 700 years after where you think you're at? And I was like, well, freak, everybody I know is dead or like gone. So yeah, I thought that there was plenty of that. So I think that like the work that we did, you and I, Isaac, to like kind of not only what I personally wrote and gave you for a backstory, but also weaving that into your universe that you created, that your world and your story, I think it clicked really well. Like it was kind of a fun collaborative storytelling that enabled us to kind of pair up, and I don't know.
It's really cool.
We talked about that. We talked about that a bunch of times on this podcast, but like the back and forth between me and Bryan and making his characters work in the world I'm building.
And you need that a lot more if you're jumping in the middle than you do if you're jumping in at the beginning, for sure.
Yeah, that was like because my second character with you guys after my warlock died, I felt like I had a much more I had a much more compelling reason for you guys to want to take me along than my warlock did.
Yeah.
Because I got a little bit of the story under my belt, and I was like, okay, I'm making this next character to be helpful to the party, and not just like some guy that they find and are like, all right, come on.
Yeah, there's like a meta element to it, right? Like, oh, you're a real person that's playing this game with us,
Yeah.
so I guess like, yeah, sure, whatever reason.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
You think about it like a D&D, like we play these individuals that have decided to buck the trends of society and go like delve depths and murder and plunder. And we're just gonna randomly bring along some like hitchhiker that seems like the same kind of
Just carrying a weapon.
Can hold the sword. All right, come on.
Sick. Come on, you're in.
You also like killing anybody you come across? Welcome. This is fantastic.
I love this. Anytime anybody pushes against me, I love to cut their head off. It's fantastic.
You're no different than like the last party of bandits that we just murdered, but there's something special about you, I could tell.
It's a
got a personality. Is that a backstory I whiff off of you?
You stink of backstory.
You stink of someone who's had a backstory.
Hey, lots of my NPCs have backstories, and you kill them anyway.
Sometimes they deserve it, Isaac.
Well, yeah, of course they all do.
Oh, they all do. Next guy
Yeah.
I'm killing is that little gnome that everyone likes. The truth
Don't-
seeker.
Don't fuck with Mr.
No,
Tumblebottom.
yeah, don't even, man.
Don't even joke about that.
Don't even joke about that.
Oh my gosh. No, I think
Okay,
that,
fine. I'll settle for killing his best friend. Like we
He
did with
doesn't
that guy
have
in the
any.
woods.
Me and
No, the guy-
Brian's characters are his
Oh yeah,
best
are
friends.
his best
Yeah,
friends.
for
Yeah,
real.
he's like, guys.
Man.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, like I was kind of thinking about this and thinking about, like, again, I felt very fortunate to join this particular table, if you will, because I think a lot of like things that people should do with new people happened, like a collaborative effort to integrate story and character took place between the player and the DM.
Yeah.
I think you guys, I mean, as unwieldy as D&D can be, like I think that you guys did a good job of like presenting it in a way that's consumable for someone new, because there's so much now, like even just looking through the basic rules and like, okay, I want to build a character, but like what does that mean,
Yeah.
which classes, etc., yada yada yada. And like I think a lot of you guys were like, well, what do you want to do, but also here's like extra prompts to get you thinking about how you want to filter it in. And it's been interesting because like I just recently started kind of getting my brothers into it, and it, like I'm kind of asking the same questions that you guys are asking, or at least asking me.
Yeah.
Like,
You get with playing, you get a sense of like, how do I steer someone in the direction that they want to go in?
Yeah.
And that's why we have a podcast. Thanks for listening to Rules, Jewels, and D&D Schools, boys. Woohoo!
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh
So-
shit.
So tell me about a little bit about your getting your brothers into it, having sort of being on the other end of that.
Oh yeah, and that's another crazy thing. You went straight from like, I'm not into it, I'm into it, I'm really into it, and then you're already having that experience of bringing new people into
Yeah, now
it.
you're full MLM.
Dude, yeah, for real. The pyramid is growing.
And they bring two friends.
and then eventually the whole world.
I have always been a huge fan of like games that have a steep learning curve. Like all of the video games and board games and stuff that I really like and play a lot are like not stuff that's just like, yeah, I introduced my whatever very casual friend to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Dota 2, Hunt Showdown.
Yeah.
Like I played World of Warcraft for a while with like an intense raiding group that would raid every week. Like not just like, yeah, maybe I'll play a little bit of Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Like whatever.
Yeah. You're not a filthy
Incredibly
casual.
hard. I don't know what you're talking
Hello
about.
Kitty Island Adventure.
Joe's been competitive. He's top 100 in the world.
He'd run that, dude.
Yeah.
And I feel like I got into this and just sunk my teeth into it. And it's been hilarious to see my younger brother, like in a matter of like 2 or 3 months, do the exact same thing. Like
That's the beauty of D&D, because like
yeah.
I watched a couple episodes of Critical Role and I was like, yeah, I mean that's kind of cool. And then I played one session and I was like, Critical Role's the coolest thing.
Yeah, 100%. There's like an appreciation for it too.
Yeah, it was like, man, I'm excited to play every week. I want to watch them play every week.
It's
Yeah,
funny.
I just got consumed by it when I first got into D&D.
I think I can't remember the timeline, but I also have to give serious props to Dimension 20 because I was about to move across country from Salt Lake to flipping nowhere, Indiana. And I was asking people for content because it's like, yeah, I was burned through a couple podcasts. I was done with a book or something. And I was like, I just need something to listen to on like the 3-day drive to get out here. And somebody mentioned like, would you like D&D? And I was like, I have buddies that play it. And they're like, listen to Dimension 20. And I did. It was hilarious. I feel like I probably almost got in a wreck on a freeway once. I was laughing so hard. But yeah.
I like Dimension 20. It's hilarious. It's much more it's much more lighthearted feeling than Critical Role.
It's a lot more accessible
always.
than Critical Role too.
Yeah, more accessible.
Like Critical Role, I think, has a deeper, slower burn especially getting into it. Like I tried
Yeah.
to. Me and my wife watched / listened to a season of Dimension 20, and then I had her listen to like the beginning of a first episode on a drive that we were doing, and she was like, "Yeah, I feel like this takes a little longer to get into." I'm like, "It definitely does," but I have a greater I don't know.
Yeah.
They both have their strengths, obviously.
You
But
have a
this
better
is
connection to
not
the characters and stuff.
bad.
No,
Yeah.
dude, that's vital to people getting into this game now. I don't know anybody now who doesn't. Who I'm the only person I know who doesn't watch Critical Role.
Hater.
Dude,
No,
I
just
got into D&D in such a crazy different way than all of you guys
Yeah.
that like I don't really This is a Bryan episode, not a story time with Eric episode.
kidding.
I feel like it's
We're all telling.
It was
quality
definitely
stories,
like
brother.
it was definitely like you guys were into the storytelling aspect of it and everything. When I got into it, it was just like I was in a computer programming class. Group of guys are like, "We're thinking about playing D&D. You want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Awesome." Go over. I'm playing D&D at their house and we play for like 6 and 7 hours. We show up Friday night and we play until 9 in the morning the next day. But we were playing like Diablo 2 on with pen and paper. And I did that for
Combat simulator.
years. Yeah, it was like a dungeon, and there was a little exposition or like here's what the book says the room looks like, and they read it. And then it's like, all right, well, what's in here to kill? So I'm ready to dungeon dive, old school dungeon diving. None of us knew the rules, and like it was wild.
That's like a campaign you go. We started a new campaign, played for 8 hours. Now we're level 5.
We got to 20 a lot more often back then because we played so much more.
Was
And
there
also since the point was just attacking stuff.
was there any like I guess primary reason for any of you to want to actually play?
Well,
Mine at the time was my brother was really into it, and I wanted to hang out with my brother.
there you go. Mine was the same. Mine was just like I was friends with these dudes. We hung out already. Why not Dungeons and Dragons? We played World of Warcraft together. So just World of Warcraft with pen and paper, dude.
Oh,
Yeah. And you don't have to go get buffed for like 3 hours before the raid.
Yeah. I don't have to go gather any oils or potions or any of that stuff.
Now I just do some voice techniques right before get ready for it.
I-E-I-O-U.
That's an interesting question because I feel like it is this perfect amalgamation of all the things that I love. It's a game with a steep learning curve. There's intricate, nuanced mechanics to it. Like I loved like my playwriting and my voice and the various acting classes I took in my undergrad for my theater degree. Like there's performativity, there's a social element to it as well, and also like really there's not how do I say this? Like I remember I quit WoW Classic and then played D&D, and I was like, this is great. Like the level of commitment is so much less. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, because you don't have to play all the time to keep up with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, sweet. I can carve out one night a week for 3 hours, and I don't have to do anything outside of that unless there's like a level up or like just kind of collaborating about stuff.
Yeah.
And it is like there's a lot of like control over the experience that you have too. You know what I mean? Like you create with other people a collaborative story and play a game on a certain rule set, but like you get to decide how it works. So
it's a ton of fun.
That was one of the the main reasons that I really wanted to play. Because Michael had been playing D&D for a while, and I had played maybe once or twice with him, and I was like, okay, it's all right. But when I watched Critical Role, it sort of gave me the impression of the game that I had always been looking for in video games, which is the game where your actions actually change the story.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
it's 100% your action.
Yeah. That is what made me really want to play D&D is like, because there are role-playing games where you're like, you go up to a thing and you have 2 prompts. Like, and
Yeah.
and a lot of the times, the one prompt is like, "Are you sure?" And then okay, I guess now I'll pick the other. There's like limited amount
Or-
of stories that
Yeah,
can
or
be
if there
told.
is, or if there is divergent paths, it's very clear which ones they are. You're either a
Yeah.
good guy or you're a dickhead, and that's it.
Yeah. So like the really complicated games may have, dozens of endings, right? But the general story is pretty close to the same. Whereas I feel like in D&D, and while it can still certainly be that way depending on whatever we're running and or the DM that's running it, it feels at least like you could just be like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore, and completely turn, and it would still continue. The story would still keep going. It wouldn't just be game over and you start over.
As long as the DM was like, didn't
Yeah.
just go, you know what? Fuck you guys.
But even then, though, like that would be the story. You can play it. You can play it through one time, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That to me is the most valuable aspect.
Oh, so you're valuing the permanence of the decisions as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, yeah,
It
you
makes
better
it
think about
feel
it.
real. It makes it feel consequential.
Yeah.
What you're doing is meaningful to something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
meaningful to the
whereas-
story, meaningful to the other characters.
Yeah, whereas like in a video game, it's like, oh, I died. I know next time that I have to jump right there. Okay, here we go. I'll try it again.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day too. Like, your actions in D&D are limitless for the most part. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm playing a certain video game. I want to do this, but I can't because there's not like destructible environments.
It's not
Yeah.
coded in. Yeah.
Yeah, like there are literally limitations. Like,
Yeah.
you think about games now where people talk about like, oh, your actions matter because it can lead to a couple different like potential endings, like you said.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah,
Mhm.
but those are all pre-scripted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D&D, it's literally limitless. Like, if I want to like bash someone's head into like a bar table or whatever, like, oh, I can't do that in the game because that move, that fighting move, is not coded in. Like, sorry, we don't have an animation that was written for that.
Yeah.
You know, like, sorry, you can't go prone in this game, but like like you do anything in that.
Or you just can't attack that NPC. It's not possible for you to attack.
Yeah.
Whereas in D&D, if you do that, yeah, you can do that. There's going to be consequences.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
If I don't kill everyone who comes, I'm the John Wick of D&D.
I feel like that's how you approach D&D.
Dude, it's good. It works. It's worked for years.
I mean, like with my brothers getting into it, like I asked one when he was like, well, what do I even do? Like, what should I play? Or like, what's there? And I was like, rather than me explaining the intricacies of each of the different classes and what they do, like, let me, like, what kind of film or TV or literature do you enjoy? And what kind of story do you want to tell? Like, do you want to be Legolas or Aragorn? Do you want to be Harry Potter? Do you want to be John Wick? Like, I mentioned John Wick specifically because it's like, we could work towards that. Like, if you'd rather be the Hulk, let's do it. But if you want to be Thor, okay.
Yeah, we can build into this. Any fictional world that you like, we can build that character, basically.
Yeah. I think one of you guys mentioned that to me when I was like, dude, I can't decide. And you're like, well, like, what kind of, like, experience do you want to have? You know? So,
Yeah, man.
filtering it down helped me.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which of you guys to thank for that.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't think that was me.
I don't know who it may have been me, but I don't know.
I don't remember. That was a long time ago.
I know it wasn't me.
Honestly, I think the first time that I ever talked to you, Joe, was because D&D.
I think I played a Dota game or two with you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Oh my God, did you?
Yeah. No, you told him, and Bryan was like, "Oh, okay, you're brand new, cool." He was really nice.
I won't yell
But
at you.
I could hear the rage whenever he was talking about other people, but I knew it was about me.
Another reason I like D&D is that it doesn't piss me off like Dota does. God help me, I love it so though.
But people out there, he's not saying you can't be bad at D&D.
That's true. You can be bad at D&D.
Reflect on what you're doing. And
what's your biggest pet peeve when you're
Oh,
playing
yeah.
as a new player? What's something that just like You go,
As a current
"Ah."
player, what's a pet peeve?
I don't know if I have like my pet peeves would stand from. Okay, I don't really have too many when we play, and I feel like I want to be careful about what I say because like I only play with one group. Like that's
Fair enough.
probably an extent.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that may be an
probably
That's most
extension
of
of
us
this.
right here.
Because like I mean like when I like something, I really go hard in the paint for it. So like I've gotten into D&D content creators lately and all this kind of stuff. Like I'm
Yep.
pretty into this.
Go deep.
And one thing when I'm watching videos or seeing stuff or talking to other people about it that I do find kind of annoying, especially as somebody who was recently new and is working with people that are new,
Yeah.
is D&D is so open as a game that when someone takes their preconceptions of it and puts it on someone else, like I think I've heard somebody say the best part about new players is that they don't have rigid expectations for how things are supposed to work. And so they'll do and say things that are like, oh, that's kind of an interesting take on this. Like they may ask like in the middle of combat, like, hey, can I do like a triple somersault lariat pirouette and like slice this guy's neck in half? And you could be like,
You could try.
you could try. Yes, technically, yes. You know what I mean? And they're not like, because I think if you play the game, like here's the reality is like how many people have had enough experiences at enough different tables with enough different people with enough different DMs that they truly have a wildly varied like set of experiences to help them have kind of a more diverse look at the game, right? Like I can't say that I have that. I've been playing for what, like a year or two now, which is longer than a lot of people, and I've played in a lot more sessions than a lot of people because we consistently play.
Yeah.
But I've only ever played with like 7 people, so I would never be like, "This is how D&D should be."
Well, yeah. It can change so dramatically group to group, like
Yeah.
how
And
they
that's
play
the
it.
beauty of it. If you don't like D&D in a certain way, you can find another group and it'll be played completely different.
That's what I did. Like my last group, it's not that they stopped playing; they still play every week. I just had to be like, I can't do this anymore. I'm out.
My
Like I'm
other,
suffering.
my other, like my only other P&Ps, my only other pet peeves about D&D are more just extensions of stuff that I already found annoying anyway about games and playing with other people. Like I said, my undergrad was acting, like I said, and like I have a huge belief in like yes and taking risks and supporting the people that you're playing with in an environment like that, like not shitting all over what someone else is trying to do. And so like one thing I'm grateful about this group is like I came in and I have this kind of like appreciation and aspect of the game that I like, and nobody has given me crap for like probably talking too much or like emphasizing the role play element, and it's been very open, which is great, because if there's ever a time where like something comes up and then somebody just kind of cuts it off and it's like, well, that stifles creativity and you've just kind of killed the mojo train, and I
Yeah, I
feel
know
less
exactly what
encouraged.
you're talking about.
You
Like the
know?
momentum gets stopped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like it takes the wind out of your sails. You're like you're working on, especially when you're deep into role playing, especially for your character, something going on, and then like somebody throws out a one liner, and you're like, "That's funny," but like
I'm done now.
this is an important moment, and
Yeah.
like I've been working for this, and this is like a cool moment.
Yeah. Like there's a level of respect that is important to me that people have for each other. That if you're hitting on a vein of your moment and then somebody just kind of like isn't there for it or paying attention or even just like cuts you off, like this is just general manners, right? But like there is an element of like you need to allow people to have their moment, and also you need to like other people need to allow me to have my moment and I need to allow them to have their moment and be present for both, you know.
Be
Yeah, and
appreciative of both.
I feel like, I mean, part of that I think is that a lot of people aren't comfortable with emotions. So getting past that is a big deal, and that's I mean that's just going to happen sometimes, which is sucky, but it's just kind of the way it is. But especially if you're at a table where you like trust everyone, then that can go a long way in having that not happen. But it still may happen sometimes.
Yep.
Just because if it gets tense, like especially for people with different traumas, when things get tense for them, they tend to like bail out of that situation via comedy, and it's like it's it's tough for some people to push past that and be like, it's okay, this is all pretend, we're acting. It's all pretend.
Yeah.
And some people, if it gets tense, some people can't or have a hard time getting past that. But I 100% agree with that.
And you guys have talked about this. I listen every week, so
our biggest fan,
first time caller,
first time. Yeah, exactly. You guys have talked about that. Like, it's so critical to talk with the people at the table and with your DM. Like, find the table that works for you. And if, like, I mean, you just said we're acting, and like some tables are not about acting at all, and that's fine. But like, I appreciate that there's room for that in our games, even if not everyone's there. But I think you're right. Like, there's a huge like, if you're gonna go down like, oh, I'm gonna talk about some pain, like that is something where I need to trust that the people there are willing to, like, if they're not comfortable with it, at least allow me to explore that.
Yeah.
And vice versa. It's just like, if you're gonna
allow you to explore your character in that sense, and not
like
undermine it with something.
Perfect. Like, I have an example of like early on in our second campaign that we're in right now. Early on, Ray's character Mouse, like, we eventually find the murderer of his like father figure, right? And we captured him alive. And Ray found out that, oh, you killed my father figure of sorts. And then he just decided to murder the guy on the spot, like revenge style. And he used magic missile to do it. And I remember I was next to the guy, and I felt like we have more info that we can get out of this guy. And so for a split second, I thought about grabbing the guy and casting shield.
Yeah.
And I decided not to, because I was like, I don't want to get in the way of Ray's moment here.
Yeah.
Because there's like more important things at play than like, hey, like we can meta and get more info out of this, or like we can have this moment where
we can see like a true color of Ray's character in this sense of like, okay, he's we don't know a whole lot about this guy, but at least now we know if he cares about you, he'll kill for you.
And there's been other moments where I've not done the right thing with that, but there's also this element of like, well, just apologize. And
I was about to say, like, in that scenario that you played at, that you just said, like, I can totally see where you're coming from, where if you shield him from the initial blast, that's a moment, that's a character moment as well. That's a moment of tension between your character and his character where you're butting heads over. If you're a more logical character, you're saying, we need to extract this. I don't care what you do as long as we get what we need first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like, that could be another thing that you could look into. And I guess for me, at the time, it was just kind of a gut call, because I just feel like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
particularly,
especially if it's like involving that character's backstory, I could definitely appreciate why you didn't.
Yeah.
And part of it is like knowing the people you're playing with too. Like,
yeah,
100%.
We enjoy playing with Ray. Ray is fun to play with. As a player, I don't know that he necessarily like. It was maybe new. I don't know. It was new to me that he would do something like that. And I was like,
I will say, as a person who doesn't the acting and emotional part of it, I'm not as good at, especially as you guys. I have like a long history of D&D, and it's like changing those habits to get into that. So like, if Ray is less comfortable with it, he's not thinking of it. Maybe he doesn't think of it in the sense of he is his character. He's thinking like I think he thinks very away from his character. That's why he speaks in third person when he plays his character. So it's not like, what would my character do in in their personality, what would they do in this moment? It's like when you first start getting into that, you're thinking, and especially him who's read a lot of like a ton of D&D fiction, he might be like, well, you always get revenge. This is the story beat I want to hit. So he's going to do that. And even though it doesn't line up necessarily with the backstory that he has or that the character that he's played up to that point, because it's not a decision made in character in the way that you guys think about your character. Because I have tons of conversations with Joe about our characters and what we're doing and how we're interacting in the story. But if I'm being completely honest, Joe sees his character, and I assume you, Bryan, and you, Isaac, you see your characters in a way that I do not see the characters at all. Yeah. I find myself to be, while I know what my character's motivations are, I'm past that early stage. I definitely am so separated from the character's story that I never get into character in any meaningful way outside of like just a couple of times. And that is a massive barrier for me personally.
Yeah.
When you play for years and years and years where your character isn't anything other than just like the meat grinder that tears through the dungeon, you know what I mean?
And I think a big cause of that is because of like Critical Role.
Yeah.
That made for me that made me want to be that's why I like playing D&D. I get to be somebody else for 3 hours. I get to be this thing that I've made. And I get into that mindset of I'm not doing what I would do because I would totally do different stuff. I'd run away. But you know what I mean? But it's like I get to be this brave guy, and like especially like with Saturn, I try to make he's like a suave, like confident, like just bruise, good time.
Yeah, completely different than what you are. Whereas like
was that an insult?
That's not an insult. Sorry, I didn't mean it in that way.
You're not like suave at all. Get out of here.
You're not suave at all. Get out of here. But what I mean is like,
thanks, Eric.
Yeah. What I mean is my character. The only characters I've ever been able to get into are characters that are nothing more than just like the slightest tweak on my own personality.
Yeah.
If I stray too much from that wedge, I can't get into the character. Whereas Joe definitely can. He can make a character that's completely different than him.
I've grown as a player a ton. Whenever the first 2 years I played, it was just me kind of like sitting back, watching people play, and then going, okay, it's my turn to roll. Cool. And then as I just got more comfortable, and I'm sitting there going, I wanna be like them. I wanna make these awesome stories. I want to get involved. So I just had to force myself over and over to like get into it. And then I built up some confidence, and now I do voices.
Yep.
And it's fun. The voice part of it really gets me locked in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wanted to say as far as like getting into character, I've tried out something a little different. Where I'm trying to separate RP from combat a little bit. Just because at some point, like it's so the best stories I feel like are ones where the villains have a motivation that is recognizable.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, in D&D, sometimes you just want the villain to be the bad guy that you kill. So I've tried to separate with my rogue with Arrow right now. I've tried to separate that out a little bit, and the RP is like very character driven, and then when it's combat time, I do a little less character driven and reel it back in. And so I'm not like, oh, should I kill this guy? I'm just like, yeah, okay, we're fighting now, so this is it.
Yeah,
you're still playing a game.
You got to be committed to the fight.
Yeah. So I mean, unless it's something unless it's something specific, I'm going to be okay. All in. We're fighting now.
Well, I mean, if you think about it from like a combat perspective, like indeed, like that is like literally life or death. Like I need to kill you before you end mine.
Yeah, you are trying to kill me. I cannot go easy here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I was gonna say too.
Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna diverge.
I already lost the train of thought. So go ahead.
It's gone.
It's gone. I stopped. If I'm rolling, I roll. If it stops, that's the end of it. I forget. I'm lost.
All the cars get jacked up.
Yeah, I'm done. I already lost that train of thought, dude.
Well, I just like when you talk about purpose, like I had one of my professors that I always talked about, like no one ever does anything that they don't want to. And he'd be like, everyone in the class, give me something that you do that you don't think you want to do. And he would like kind of talk through. It's like every example was just like, well, if you don't do that, then what's the consequence? Like everyone has a purpose, a motivation, an incentive, like an objective. That's what we really called it in each scene that we worked. And I think that it's critical. Like your bad guy, like everyone's got something that they want to do, and it changes with your scenario and situation. Obviously, it's like in combat, like I want to live, and that means this person has to die because he's trying to,
Yeah.
The other thing I was gonna say earlier is like, you talk about voices and stuff like that, like something to like help you get you into character. Like oftentimes, voice, a physical tick, like an expression, like even just a word or a phrase or something. Like if you're ever like wanting to RP more but not sure how to like make that transformation, like it doesn't need to be a holistic kind of thing. Just focus on like a physical element, a vocal element, and like a mental, like either a phrase or something that they say differently, or like even like, hey, my character, instead of counting to 3, like 1, 2, 3 with your pointer, your middle, and your ring, like they count with your thumb, your pointer, and your thing. Like they do the German 3 or whatever.
Yeah,
or like
yeah.
the sign language 3. Like just if there's something you could do that's just a tiny bit different. Like Critical Role fans, like you think about like Caleb, for example, like killer accent, and also the fact that he wrapped around like this element of like trauma in his story that like came into play on a regular basis. Like those two very specific things that transform the person wildly, that are just like two tiny elements that you could include.
Gives your character texture, something you can latch onto.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things that I think Liam does, he's done it in both Campaign 2 and Campaign 3. He did it, I guess, a bit in Campaign 1, but I feel like Campaign 1 was just literally just taking their home game and playing it in front of people. But Campaign 2, he started like involving the way he casts spells with the materials that they take via the rule book, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So he would like start to describe a spell, not saying the spell's name, but just the components, and everyone would be like, I know what's coming now.
I slapped together batshit and sulfur.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
I take the sulfur and grind my hand through it.
But
I really like that. That's like, I think that's very cool.
Oh yeah.
The role play in combat.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It can get you in trouble though. You describe something and then like it doesn't work the way you're intending it to work, and then you're like, oh, let me roll that back. Actually,
I think role playing combat would help our groups a ton. That's something that we don't do at all. Like we're never like in character going, I think we need to do this and this and this during a fight. It's just kind of like, okay, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn.
Yeah.
that's because if you were in a hectic fight like that, it would be hard to like have a little side conversation while you're.
Well, I mean, it's
hacking
not.
someone up.
You're not unloading a paragraph on a guy in 6 seconds. But as you're running, you're going, I think we should try this.
I'm gonna hit you with
Or
this
just be
monologue.
like, yeah, just look over him like, look. I look him dead in the eyes and I yell, flank, and I run to one side.
Yeah, but if you yelled flank to your partner as you ran separate directions, the guy knows you're trying to do that. That's bad.
Yeah, but that doesn't keep him from getting flanked. He still has to defend on two sides. That's all a flank is.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's not like I'm surprise flanked. It's,
and that's where, as like DM, you got to be like, if the character doesn't speak the same language, he doesn't know what that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone.
I yell to him in Gnomish, flank.
It
is like an extra layer you have to factor in to that, because I think a lot of people are also thinking about like, what am I going to do during my turn?
There's already so much going on, yeah.
But if you can do it, I think that's awesome.
I think about how my character looks doing the things that he's doing.
That's another element. Like that's a story in and of itself. Like there is a story to be told. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's some of the coolest parts. Like
that's the part of it that I'm way more comfortable with, as the combat side of it. Not only rules wise and like character optimization wise, but like how I want my character to look while they're doing that thing. That I can picture that very clearly in my head.
Yeah.
Like
Describe
my guys.
For us more.
my guy's a martial artist, I can describe that in insane detail because it's something I'm extremely interested in already and that I already do. Or how my character looks in motion while casting a spell, how my character looks sliding up and shooting a bow. I could describe that in extreme detail very easily. But
Which
it's
is,
just
I mean, that's RP and that's storytelling too.
Oh, yeah.
But like, because there's not an accent to it, like people don't think about that, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Like
But
how you
that's,
want to
again-
do this? It's like
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool as shit.
Liam does that again with his fighter in campaign 3. He's like, I roll between their legs and I come up and give him, like, he describes his motions with his sword play and stuff, which is
And like
again,
where he's
very
cutting
cool.
people and everything.
Yeah.
It's like, if you've ever seen John Wick, the way that he shoots someone at point blank, like that is unique to that person and that style of movie. Like I've never seen that before in my life, you know?
The up
way
close,
he-
not talking, just
Well, just the way
Straight.
he holds his gun, you know, and just like,
oh yeah, very tactical, a lot more like less John Woo movie and more
yeah.
yeah.
Gosh, man. Like it's so visceral and it's like
I
watching
love-
that, it's like I've never seen an action movie like that.
I love combat. That's my favorite aspect of the game right now for sure. But I mean, it always has been. That's what I have the most experience with. So
Right.
of course that's what I
Which
like
is-
the most.
I mean,
And I do that outside of D&D. I enjoy animations of combat. I enjoy fighting on my own, martial arts. Like I have a lot of life experience around combat and how it should work. So that it really helps me visualize how everything's going to be.
I mean, even like, I think you would argue this, and I agree. Like martial arts, and especially like martial arts films, like that's using another. Like certain films use dialogue, and certain films use action, and certain
Yeah.
films use. Like I think martial arts itself is a medium for storytelling.
The storytelling of like an old kung fu movie is the kung fu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing for D&D. Like you could do that with exactly what you're describing.
Yeah. I love it, man. It's great.
So yeah, when you're new to D&D.
So when you're new to D&D, by the way, listen, it was always going to be a free-form thing. Don't worry about it.
I mean, if you are new and you're not sure how to role play, these are all great examples.
These are all great examples.
Get advice from Bryan here because he jumped in just 100% ready to go. You were the quickest to like start role playing. I'm not kidding you. It took me 2 years to get comfortable enough to want to start actually getting involved with character development. And you just like jumped in and it was incredible. It was awesome.
I will
Having
say
that extra player that is really into role play is amazing.
I mean, I have this advantage of like, I feel like I've mentioned this a couple times. I don't act, guys. Like, anyone listening, thinking like, listen to this conceited artist. Sound like a douchebag. I am not an actor. Like, I enjoyed it in high school and I dabbled in college and I switched up my career. But having that background like definitely helped because like, oh, I've read lines before. I've like pretended to be someone I'm not.
I've been in the school play before.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really.
I hated being in the school play. I hated it so much. I always just stood there. I'm like standing there, and they're like, "You better remember your lines." And I'm like, "God damn it! I'm having so much trouble remembering these lines."
Like I will say, like another element of feeling like lucky is that like we didn't really talk about that element. I didn't know that was a part of D&D to the extent that it can be, and I found a group of people that were pretty receptive to it, so that I could have role play moments with a group that there is a pretty big spectrum of level of RP that some people in our group are wanting or willing to have or engage in on a regular basis.
Yeah, for sure.
And I found a group that are cool with my place in that spectrum. So I feel again lucky. But
I will add also
these guys have.
Who would want to RP contract negotiations? Oh wait.
That was amazing. That was a 10 out of 10 experience.
I feel like that probably is Eric's top 10 of sessions he's ever played.
That was good for me.
It was pretty fun, honestly. Oh man.
That's the kind of analytical shit I live for.
I was like, that's what I
D&D
was like, you guys decided to talk to Juan, and I was like, okay, we'll see how far this goes. It took an entire session. I was like, okay, what about this though? Point A, paragraph C.
I love that
could use
because
some tweaking.
see, that's easier. That kind of stuff's easier for me because that's the kind of like that's the side of my brain that's more active most of the time. Which is like I can negotiate.
For those listening, we basically did D&D Tycoon.
Yeah, we did we did like capitalism tycoon for one session.
Got a shipping fleet in place now.
I wanted to
just a session, Eric. It was like 2.5.
There was this one time in a campaign I was in, and I came up with this whole plan. I can't remember what campaign this was. I came up with a whole plan to create a shipping company that worked with magically infused doves. And like I worked out how it was going to work mechanically, how much money I needed to set it up, and like all this stuff. And I pitched it, and they were like, "We're absolutely not doing that." And I was like, "I can make so much money though."
Yeah, I feel like, that's some yes and stuff. You got to roll with it sometimes, even if it's not like your thing. As long as you're not like crossing lines, right? Like the obvious stuff, right? Like that's where you just kind of talk with your players and, like that's one thing that I now as a new person, like I'm about to do a campaign with my brothers and my wife.
Yeah.
And I'm going to DM it and I'm going to do a session 0. And like I'm going to ask questions that I wish I would have asked when I came in.
I'd say that like you're a veteran player now. You've only been playing for a year, but we've played weekly for a long time.
Yeah.
You have more sessions in than some people who've probably played for 4 years if they're only playing once a month,
100%. Well, and having seen a campaign through to an end too, I mean, like that doesn't happen to a lot of people.
Yeah, all the way to the end. Yep. And also, I will say, as far as the I wanted to loop back around to this because I forgot to say this earlier. It is much easier, I think, to gauge a room and get into your character and things when you're in person.
Yes.
It's so much easier to gauge a room. It's so much easier. And like if you're having if you're in a room with people and someone's having their big moment and they're talking and they're having like a big thing, you don't want to interrupt that. Well, when you're playing online, you just have to sit there and let them have their thing. But in person, you can have little kind of micro interactions that happen across the table and they don't necessarily interrupt one person's thing.
I think even in those moments, if it's somebody's big moment, I think everybody's just
okay. If it's a big moment, you pay attention, but you can have there's a much different element, and that element is a lot. It's easier to gauge the room and gauge the people that are in there and the temperature of the room and everything.
It's an active process. It's difficult because like the other thing is like sometimes big moments you can see them coming, but other times like there may be something you're unaware of with that character, or I mean like sometimes some of the most beautiful parts of a story are very nuanced and not anchored around pivotal plot points, right?
Yeah.
Like a conversation that you can have with a person, like I'm trying to think of an example. Like I feel like we had a cool moment a couple weeks ago where we were talking about the source of our powers, magic wise.
Yeah. I told Eric the same thing.
He did.
I thought it was such a cool question that you asked. How do you feel your power? How do you use it? Where does it come from? I've never been asked that before, and having that asked to my character and thinking about it from my character's perspective was really cool because I got to go into detail, and that was all on the spot. I was just like, real quick in my head, and I was like, okay, this is how he feels it, and then I went into it. It was such a great moment.
Like for me, I was considering multi-classing into Warlock at that point, and I felt like it tied into my story because we like for our campaign we took a side adventure to the Abyss. It went very poorly, and I feel like my character had motivation to like deepen his powers through a pact with his like I play a sorcerer, powers stem from a lineage stemming from that, like a blessing from this divine being or whatever.
Yeah.
We have this failure experience in the in the abyss, and I feel like maybe I can get more out of a pact or something, or multi-classing. So like mechanically I was thinking this would be cool. Also it fits in with the theme, and I'm motivated to have a conversation about warlocks and patrons with Joe's character because he is one. But I mean, like, it was such a very, I mean, that was kind of a super dope moment that wasn't anchored to a pivotal
Any of the
plot moment.
backstory, into the
Yeah,
plot.
yeah,
Yeah. It's a natural thing that happened in the moment
Right.
instead of it
And
something that was already
it's a
pre-planned.
cool way to build camaraderie between the
Mhm.
characters. Like I feel like that really was like the start of Jace and Saturn kind of getting
Yeah.
closer.
And also, like, it just points to the fact that like it's not easy to be an active participant in a table, like what you're talking about, Eric, with like it being in person. It can
Yeah.
be easier for sure. It also just like requires that everybody's kind of always on, even if you're not on stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like I
And
feel
when
like we had a very unscripted, unexpected moment with that.
Yeah.
But like, you know.
and when I'm not I guess I prefer in person so much because I'm not at my computer. I have nothing else to do but be active in the game. I have there's no respite. There's no like there's no thing for my brain to be like, yeah, you could be doing this while you're not rolling dice. You could be like checking up on that thing you need to check up on.
Do you know many people? I mean, like, I'm generally good. I haven't played very long. Do you know anybody that like prefers online?
I mean, I don't know about these guys. I don't prefer online, but I play it and I like it. It's fine.
I
Like,
enjoy it both equally, but if I had a preference, it would be in person.
Yeah, if I could play in person with you guys every week, I would do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, online is what makes it possible for us to play. So
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like if there was that's I imagine
Get a
most
teleporter,
people,
we could all get together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if most people, if they could, I think they would prefer in person. But online
Yeah.
it enables us to be able to do this. Obviously.
Especially
For
because we have cameras, that helps so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
I
that
couldn't
helps a
see
lot.
you whenever we were playing. I've played in a campaign like that. Almost impossible.
You don't even anyone. You can't read anyone's face at all.
No.
You're just like talking. Yeah.
So I do want to ask you, Bryan, about whenever you did come into ours. I feel like you ended up bringing a lot of RP element, and I just wanted to know if you felt like that was a lot of that. If you could tell that a lot of that was coming specifically from you, or if there was some sort of any kind of barrier at all, even if a light one that you could feel when you came in for RP.
I think, I mean, you guys can attest to this. I've probably apologized like close to 7,000 times. Hey,
Yeah.
sorry if I like
After the
dominated
session.
that session.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like I'm sorry if I talk too much. Because I mean, like you talked about that I mentioned the spectrum of like people willing to RP. Like I'm
Yeah.
probably
You're on the furthest end
the
of
top.
willing. Yeah.
Like Joe's probably Joe and Isaac. You guys, I don't know. You're maybe at the same level, maybe or close. But
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like I talk. I am always concerned of over dominating, whether that's like an insecurity that I have, or if it's just over self awareness or whatever.
It depends on the group. We have multiple people who don't really engage in the RP that much. So the fact that you're picking up that slack just is.
I tell people,
And that's the beauty of our group is we do have the people that they don't want to RP much, but they aren't mad about letting you enjoy it.
100%. Like again, I feel so lucky that like there's 2 or 3 individuals that will go for an hour without saying a word, and are, I hope, seemingly totally fine with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is totally fine. It happens.
Everyone secretly hates you.
It can happen. It can happen in any direction. Is the thing. Like you could even if you spend a whole session talking, it could very very well be the next session you're going to spend the whole time sitting there just listening to someone talk.
So
I tell people that there's 7 of us on a Discord call like at once, and they're like, "How do you do that?" Because like I'm about to play with my two brothers and my wife, and we're doing virtual, and it's like I cut it off at that, like no more family or friends, because the four of us have no problem with talking. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
in person, again, you can have these side conversations, and like you could do that without interrupting or like being a distraction. But dude, So you ask about barrier, like literally, that's probably the biggest one. Was just being concerned that I don't want to come into a session or a campaign that's already been going and then just be this kind of nuisance of a dominating force. I didn't feel any pushback from anybody, but I mean, it goes back to stuff you've talked about, which is like just
It also,
having
yeah.
open conversation as a group to
Yeah.
determine if it's the right mood or table for you in that sense.
Yeah, I felt like when you came in, it really balanced out our group because before you got there, it was pretty much any RP moments was. I mean, there was like a little bit outside of this, but like probably 70 to 90% of the RP moments was just me and Joe.
Yeah.
And then you came in, and I was like, oh, you
Yeah,
guys can
trust
talk for
me.
minutes.
I was like, yeah.
It's
I was like,
interesting.
you wanna have a conversation with me? Let's do that.
It's
me
interesting.
and Eric have had a bunch, especially on our Thursday campaign.
On the Thursday.
In the early
old
days of
Thursday.
that one, we definitely,
Because back then it was just me and you.
whenever in
forced.
that Thursday campaign, it was definitely me and Eric were the only two people talking. We were the only two people making
I was forced to
decisions.
talk. Now I don't have to talk as much. You talk enough for both of us, so I can just kind of like chill back, and that's fine with me.
And like
Yeah,
the last thing I want to do is talk enough for anyone that they don't have a chance to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, listen. If I wanted to talk, I would talk.
We would all know. I'm certain.
If I wanted to talk, I'd be talking.
Yeah, I remember when I came into that
myself.
Thursday night when I came in with an accent prepared. And I'm pretty sure I got laughed at the first time I did.
Probably.
But I stuck with it anyway.
I got used to it. It was fine.
I got used to it. It was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the one time my
Oh,
character,
man.
I was just trying to do my own voice a little bit angrier.
Yeah.
It wasn't like anything whenever you joined. So you were kind of.
That was the first campaign I played in that had a lot of RP.
But I think also at the same time, I would start out with the voice. I would be the only one doing a voice, and then you do that for like a month or two, and you're like,
forget it.
I'm the only one doing it.
Stuff. It's funny. This is totally aside, but played these two characters for these two campaigns, and I feel like they're very similar with maybe slight variations.
You're gonna get that a lot.
But both like Isaac, I'm not telling you to kill my character or anything, but I am excited if the opportunity presented itself because I do want to play something that does stretch me a little bit in a different way, character-wise. Like I've got a couple ideas of different characters, not like both mechanically, like I think it'd be fun to play this class and to play it this way, but also like I think it meshes with this idea that I have for a character and a story that I want to tell with a different personality. I've picked two very like jovial, jokes a lot, sarcastic kind of like marmy characters, and marmy is probably in my top 3 words to describe myself. So like the kind of projections are, and not that there's anything wrong with that, especially I think for a new player, but there comes a point where it's like, it can be kind of fun to like do, like you said, Joe, earlier, which is like, this is like books, television, TV, video games. This is a form of escapism that can be really healthy sometimes. So, like, lean into that and like be someone that you're not. Be something you're not.
Sorry. Indeed. It's too far away from the mic.
That was perfect. Yeah. That's D&D.
That's D&D. And that's a good place to end this episode because we're well over an hour right now, I think.
We gotta cut some out, but yeah, I think we still are.
Yeah, I think we still are. That's all right though. There's still more meat on the bone. Bryan could come back in the future.
Definitely.
But anyways,
Definitely. Gotta come back.
See, man. People might be like, that guy talked more than That guy talked enough for all of you.
Listen, usually it's just me talking in here. Me and
Hey.
Listen, I see the waveform. My voice never stops like the whole time, like one big bar.
I'll pull back the curtain for all you guys after this ends. I'm going to apologize again for dominating the session.
All
I'm
right.
not kidding. I feel like I could go back through my chat log with Isaac and just be like, "Hey, sorry if I was too much."
You said it to me a lot after sessions. We'd stay on and play a game of Hunt, and you were like, "Listen, man, I'm sorry if I talk
you
too
have
much."
done that, and I hope don't ever feel that way because, like, trust me, it's great. It really is awesome.
That's hilarious, dude.
Oh shit!
Every time you do that, I'm like, I enjoyed it. It was perfect.
It was perfect. Everything was excellent.
Thanks, guys, for patting my ego.
That's what we're here
Yeah,
for,
we'll
man.
try to
Just kidding, you suck.
have to get you a new hat.
Funny.
All right, I'm just gonna hit this stop recording. Otherwise, it's gonna
All right.
keep going forever.
Bye, Craig.
Bye.
Fuck out of here, Craig.
Bye.
Bye.